All right, Kamaljeet, give me a countdown.
Okay. Da da di da 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 di da 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 di da.
Whoa, that's difficult to hide there. Busting out some quarter beats.
Quarters.
Welcome to another episode of Absolute Focus. So last episode, our sound engineer, Jackson,
That Jackson man.
mother effing Jackson, really messed up, and he had Miles's mic off.
Good thing we have backups.
Yeah, so we had the backup recorder, and so that's why the quality wasn't up to par. But we put some noise filters on it. We did everything we could. We brought Miles's voice up.
Yeah.
And it sounded pretty good.
No thanks to Jackson.
Yeah, apologies to Miles. We love you, man. Come back again, and we'll do another episode with
We'll
your
actually
mic
turn your mic on.
on.
By the way, Sheila's mic on.
Yeah.
Good.
So let's just get some stuff out of the way. Like Kamaljeet is going to be playing at the Tabla Festival with Ustad Tari. She's going to be accompanying him on Nagma on August 4th. So everybody should come out to check out that festival out. There's going to be amazing tabla solos. Pandit Nindo Chatterjee is going to be there. Ustad Tari obviously. There's going to be vocalists, instrumentalists, dancers.
It's going to be a big shebang.
It's a 2-day festival that's awesome. Use the promo code Absolute Focus to get a 20% discount.
Not bad.
Yeah.
20% really helps.
So check that out. We're pretty excited today that we got a really, really cool guest.
Yes.
This guest is like a really great person. Like she's introduced us to...
I know, man. You're so generous.
Yeah. She introduced us to Amrita, who's a composer that we work with.
Yeah, the first time, yeah. Because we met at Kershkali concert, right?
Yeah.
That's the first time we ever met you, and then you gave me a gig and you didn't even know me.
Oh, at the downtown at the...
Yeah, Gersh and Aditya and Max.
Right.
Yeah, Max was her goodbye.
That's when we just said hi, I think, right? Am I remembering wrong?
No, I think that's the first time we physically... Yeah, I think we'd spoken online here and there.
Just here and there.
Huh.
But then, yeah, you introduced us to Amrita, and now you just sent another gig our way with Samir from New York.
Samir is awesome. I'm so excited that worked out.
Yeah,
you were actually the first person I thought of, and then I said, well, they're far, but that would be so awesome.
Oh, we're used to driving. Oh, wait, I should say our guest is...
Oh, yeah, sorry. Your introduction got wrecked.
She's an amazing instrumentalist. She plays the harp. She plays the bansuri. She plays the harmonium. She's a tremendous vocalist.
What do you not do?
She's in like so many different scenes. Like she's in the Indian classical scene. She's in the Kirtan scene. She's in like the dub bass scene. Like she crosses genres a lot, which is awesome.
We like that.
Welcome, Sheela Bringi.
Thanks, you guys. That was a very generous introduction.
It's all true, though. So
awesome to be here.
Yeah, let's start there. Like, you cross over into so many different genres. Do you have one that's like home for you, or they're all equal?
Well, I would say that's an interesting question. So I think actually I would say my first love was actually Indian devotional music.
Yeah.
So just growing up in my family, we would always gather our family and friends and stuff every week to sing bhajans together.
Wow.
So that really is like kind of sort of my first, I don't know, introduction to music. That and also Carnatic music. So my parents, I'm South Indian, and my parents are both Carnatic musicians. My mom's a singer and my dad plays the mridangam. Oh. So growing up hearing bhajans and also Carnatic music in the house is kind of like my first love. Now, I studied a little Carnatic music with my parents, but I'm not like in it at all. I don't perform it. I'm theory. Not. No. So I would say, so bhajans the first one, but then also I fell in love with jazz when I was like a teenager and my mom found me this amazing jazz piano teacher. I had already played like some classical piano and stuff. I was really lucky. My mom was very encouraging of like any of my artistic pursuits.
That's awesome.
And really she taught at community college when I was young, and she used her first community college earnings to get a piano actually when I was like 5 or 6. And so I studied a little bit of classical piano, but then I saw a jazz piano player at a wedding we went to, and I was like, oh my God, he looks like he's having so much fun.
Yeah,
and he's like singing and he's soloing, and I was like, what is he doing? I want to know how to do that.
Yeah.
I just loved that that freedom. I felt like he was playing, which I didn't feel like I was getting in my Western classical training. So those two, I would say, which is bhajan and then also jazz.
Oh, wow.
Awesome.
Were my kind of earliest influences. And then as I got a little bit older, like when I was later in my teens, I started studying Hindustani music. And again, it was because I fell in love with the bansuri and the sound of the bansuri.
Yeah.
And I was choosing an instrument like for high school band, and I wanted to play the flute, the silver flute. And then somehow I came across a video of Hari Prasad, and I was like, what? Again, like I loved the depth of the sound and the, like, back then I probably wouldn't use this word, but like the organic sound, you know, and just the way that he was playing. And so my mom found me a teacher. And this is in Colorado, where I grew up in a small mountain town in Colorado called Fort Collins, and she found me a teacher about an hour away. So when I was a teenager, I studied bansuri, Hindustani music on the bansuri, and the jazz piano. So those were kind of like the two main things that I was studying and that influenced me through those years.
Cool.
That's cool. Like, so Kirtan maybe we should talk about the differences because I actually don't know them. But so we're Sikh, and so for us, Kirtan is always like in the Gurdwara and like it's Gurbani, like from the Guru Granth Sahib.
Yeah.
So that my grandfather was a tremendous Kirtaniya.
Wow.
And so like that is home to me. So I grew up playing tabla in Gurdwaras and like playing with my grandfather, and to this day, like I play with somebody named Anantveer Singh, and like it's really fulfilling. Like it feels right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But it's different. Like my playing is so when you're on stage for like classical music or like as a musician, you're going into depths of the musicality of it, right?
Yeah.
And then when you're playing with Kirtan, you're just there to support the actual
words of
words.
God.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
You're not putting any of your ego in it. You're trying to just bring out the words even more, I guess.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And trying to connect people with that instead of just, hey, look at my thigh.
Exactly, right.
That's so cool.
Check out how fast I played.
Absolutely, yeah.
So when you're, because I know that there's this scene called like the Kirtan scene.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
So what is that exactly? Because we're Sikh, so maybe it's just us.
Maybe we just don't.
Yeah, we're stuck in our own little gurdwaras, and we don't know.
Maybe, yeah.
Right.
Maybe we're just being racist.
No. So how do I encapsulate it in a nutshell? Well, I'll tell you a little bit about how I came into it.
Okay.
So basically, as I mentioned, I grew up every Friday night we would have bhajans at our house.
Right.
And bhajan, I guess in Hinduism, kirtan and bhajan are kind of the same thing. Bhajan is the Sanskrit word, and kirtan is, kirtana. Kirtan is more the Hindi word.
Okay.
But basically, like in South India, bhajan and kirtan, we just say bhajan.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's basically the same thing. But in North India, bhajan, of course, is like a song form, and it can be call response, or it could just be solo.
Right.
Like Kabir bhajans or Meera bhajans. But in the South, bhajan is the same thing as kirtan. So I use it in the same way. That's how we used it growing up. But anyway, so then. Then I started studying Hindustani music and and Western music and stuff. But when I when I was studying at Cal Arts and
the Cal Arts.
How
many Cal Arts people do we
did you not know that? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know. Yeah.
I actually moved to LA to attend Cal Arts. And
that's what brought you here.
so I moved to LA in 2007 and I did my master's degree there. And so my last semester at Cal Arts, I'm like, okay, so I'm going to graduate with a Master of Fine Arts degree in World Music Performance with an emphasis in North Indian music. Like, what the hell am I going to do? You know? And I started to notice that, and even before I started to notice that there was kind of this scene in like this kind of like yoga was very popular, becoming very popular and still is. And a lot of like, you know, Western white Kirtan singers that were singing like Hindu Kirtan, right? And this was something I grew up with and something that I love to do. So I thought, well, I guess I could, you know, see maybe what possibilities there are in the scene for me, because like I need to work, you know, and I need gigs. I need to, you know, and this is something that I love to do, and it's something I genuinely enjoy and I grew up doing. So let's just like see what possibilities there are. So I started to sort of explore a little bit like what's going on in LA with this scene. And I started to get invitations, and I started to get people who wanted me to like accompany them on bansuri or sing with them or whatever. And then I kind of just started building from there. And so what is the scene? I think it's, you know, I think it stems from the whole kind of influence of Indian mysticism, yoga philosophy, you know, Eastern religion in general on the West that started, you know, probably at the beginning of the 1900s, you know, with Swami Vivekananda and the Beatles and Maharishi Mahesh Yogi and all these, you know, all these influences and the baby boomers and all that. And then I think it just kind of grew out of that. I think, you know, the Neem Karoli Baba people have been in that was the lineage that Krishnadas probably being the most famous Kirtan, Western Kirtan wala.
Right.
He's become kind of a household name in this scene. And so I think that community has really like given a lot of visibility to Kirtan and practice of Kirtan in the West. So honestly, I don't know. I don't like.
It's basically the same, right? You just sing bhajans.
Yeah. It's just in a yoga studio instead of a temple, or in someone's house, and.
But I mean, I've seen like you go to these huge festivals.
That's giant, man. You're doing one in what, Bulgaria?
It's like the Woodstock of Kirtan. Like.
Yeah, it's very interesting how it's kind of become a thing. I can't really tell you how or why it happened. I can just, so it's become part of yoga now. So yoga became very popular and people started having yoga festivals, and they're like, well, what kind of music goes with yoga?
Yeah.
So then people, I think enterprising artists were like, well, Kirtan goes with yoga, you know, and they started to then incorporate it into the yoga class itself. Right. So now a huge thing is like music in yoga classes, but then also the concerts like in the evening being, you know, mantra or Kirtan.
Yeah.
So I think.
So do the people that attend, and this is going to be a really broad and general question.
Yeah.
But are they there to sort of, so are you going with my thought process that in Kirtan that it's more about the bhajan than it is about the music? Like, are they there to be spiritually fulfilled, or are they there to be entertained, or
That's
both?
a really interesting question. And it's been, I'll be honest, it's not an easy thing when I think about like what am I going to play at this festival, because it's both. People do want to be entertained, and you have acts, Kirtan acts, quote unquote, that are just all about the entertainment, and the singer may have very little or not very much experience with the actual practice of Kirtan. Right. So then you have amazing music, but you're kind of left wondering, well, why is this called Kirtan? You know? And then on the other hand, you have very, very heartfelt, deeply devotional singers in music, but then the actual musical part of it is like, oh, like take some tabla lessons, or you know, maybe take some like raga lessons, right? So it's difficult.
So you're trying to balance.
I'm trying to balance, yeah. Personally, and I also like, I'm a little bit more of like a kind of shy, introverted person. I don't really want to perform like really what's in my heart in a festival, in front of people, and we're watching you. It's like, it's a different vibe than when you're in your home, when you're in your altar or your temple, and everyone's facing the altar, and it's an actual like ritual, right, with your community, versus like you're on stage in front of people and they're looking at you, and it's a kind of like, it's a whole different context. So I try to keep a balance of it where it's got a devotional vibe, but it's like also good music.
Yeah.
And we can still take people on a journey, and they can still have feel, I don't know, calm, uplifted, sing along, participate, but then also have like really high quality music and some kind of like connection to the tradition and some kind of feeling of like authenticity.
That's cool. So
So
for these Kirtan gigs, do you? And I know we're focusing on that a bit.
That's
but,
okay.
It's because I'm really curious about it. Like, so you encourage sort of like the audience to sing with you? Do you not want them to sing with you? Do you give them space? Like you say it once and then they're gonna say it, or what's your approach?
My approach has evolved over time. I started off wanting it to be more less interactive and more like, okay, let's play some things that you maybe have never heard before, and be really creative with it. And then I've come to realize, well, people really, really want to participate. So what I try to do is I try to balance it all.
Yeah.
And I also really love, and I incorporate in all of my performances, raga also, and some aspect of classical music, whether it's we'd sing a bhajan in rupak or in chaptal for just one of them, and they hear some improvisation, they hear some alap, to precede the bhajan. So that they get a sense of classical music. So I actually try to fuse classical music into it as much as I can where it's appropriate.
Right.
And it's not traditionally done, right? In terms of, like you might hear alap with kirtan, but you might not hear, other tekas and tals and all this kind of stuff. So I try to do that because that keeps me interested.
Absolutely.
And at the same time, then I try to set aside some time. I say, okay, we're just going to do like Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, and everyone will be able to sing along. And we keep it like simple, straightforward. Yeah. But there's always an aspect of something. Like I don't generally have like drum set or I generally have tabla and try to have more traditional instruments and stuff.
That's cool. So for us, like on the Gurdwara on the Kirtan side, like it is so, especially for Sikhs, because everything in Gurbani is got a rag written associated with each
already. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
So everything there's 31 rags that are listed, and then there's I think 60. I'm forgetting the number now. 61, 62 or 63 or something.
I didn't know the number.
God, we're terrible Sikhs. And like that are so every Shabad or whatever. So it'll say something like Rag Shri Mela Palla.
Gotcha.
Then that will be in Rag Shri. So I mean, you don't have to adhere to that. Like the stricter what we call Ragis or Gyanis that do Kirtan, they'll adhere to it, but you can make different
as long
compositions.
As the
but for us, the goal is to there's different thought process, but for when I do Kirtan with the people that I've played with, the goal is to have people sing with you.
Yeah.
And so like one of the things like Anantavir does is he'll be like, I can get anybody to sing any tal, any rag. Like so he'll pick like this crazy rag, and then it'll be in jap tal, but he'll get them to do Simran to repeat like Waheguru, Waheguru.
Yeah. And
they won't know that it's Rag Shri because
Right.
he's like leading them.
Yeah.
And so it's like a game he plays. He's like, what can I get them to like do it in seven? Or
But
nine.
also the tals are written, aren't they?
Yeah, the tals are also written in
Oh,
Gurdwara.
so you'll have a kirtan and it'll have a specific raga and tala already associated with it.
Yeah.
Which you can
But
stick
people don't
to, or
adhere
you
to
can change
And
it.
are they like are Hindustani ragas?
Yeah,
Or are they
yeah.
Oh, they are.
Yeah, there's a few
Same
that are
names?
Gurbani only.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Like Bihagra.
Which the gurus composed.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. I didn't know that.
The story goes that Jajawanti was composed by Guru Ram Das Ji.
Yeah.
That's one that crossed over. There's a couple of that have crossed over.
Over.
But yeah, it's pretty cool. Like, but what you're saying in terms, so when you're in a Gurdwara, you're dealing primarily with an Indian audience, and they're used to.
Yes.
So they're used to hearing
They know
classical,
Islam.
and they're used to hearing alap and tals and all that good stuff. So it's interesting that you're like exposing a much wider audience to like Japtal.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I also figure, there are so many Western kirtan singers now that if someone just wants to hear like 1-4-5 chords and cajon and like sing Hare Krishna Hare Ram, which is there's nothing against that, but I'm just saying they want a very simple mantra, very simple, very accessible. They can hear someone like I don't feel like I need to necessarily replicate what Western kirtan singers are doing. I want to do it, and, I do it in my own way, and at the same time try to make at least part of the concert accessible that people can sing along with.
Yeah.
And otherwise, I'm like, well, it's okay if people want to sit and meditate and listen. you know, I feel like that's fine too.
Yeah. Everything goes.
You know, but I like that. I like what you were talking about, which is like kind of challenging oneself to get people to participate, even in these other. And I do that too. Like I won't advertise and say, this is a Bhupali now and Bhupali Raga, and let's see if you can do it. I just started and like
nothing's difficult. You just have to present it in the right way.
Yeah, and I mean the tabla player always makes it sound groovy anyway, no matter what style it is. They pick a really groovy teka and we sing a chorus and people sing it. It's interesting. When we were in Bulgaria a couple years ago, we did a workshop and I said, I want to see if like people here in Bulgaria can actually sing in 7 better than they can in the United States. And I was right. They totally did. Like our workshop with a lot of Bulgarians in it, and I was teaching them a mantra in a 7, and it was not an easy one. Yeah. And they got it so much quicker than any other workshop.
In Europe, everyone has their own traditions and different styles as well. Right. So that's not surprising.
Yeah, because they just dance like folk dances in 7 and 9 and 11. It's just part of the culture.
Yeah. Come on, America, step it up with your rhythmic cycles.
Fall.
Yeah.
Don't worry, we'll teach them. We'll teach them together.
Yeah. We'll do it one step at a time. So the other interesting side is the flip side of it, right? Like, so when we do an Indian classical concert, so I know I asked the question of like entertainment versus spiritual. So people do come to our concerts because Indian classical music is like, it was and is a form of prayer.
Yes.
And people do get spiritual fulfillment from it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in the end, it's all the same.
Yes.
Totally. Yeah.
Just different way of presenting it,
Yeah.
And how you want to connect to it.
Yeah.
It depends on what intention the audience member comes in with.
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah.
He might just be trying to impress his date.
He might be. Hey, I know what rag that is. You want to know?
Did I say that story?
Tell him about that story, yeah.
All right, so we got this is before I know Kamaljeet. Me, a friend of mine, and his girlfriend, who's now his wife, go to see Pandit Shivkumar Sharma in LA.
Who's my Guruji?
And he's tuning, and I just turned to my friend, I go, Rag Bin Palasi. And he's like, what? And I go, he's going to do Rag Bin Palasi.
He was like whisper shouting.
Yeah, I was like, it's going to be Rag Bin Palasi. And he's like, Mango Lassi, what? I was like, dude, Bin Palasi. Or Bean Palasi, Bin Palasi, right? I was like, he's like, I don't know what you're saying, right? And then by this time, Shivaji's done tuning.
Yeah.
He picks up the microphone and he goes, for those of you who are intelligent and gifted in the audience,
oh my God,
you must have already deciphered that I'm going to be playing Rag Bean Palasi. And then he turns to me, he's like, Jazz, F, you ruined it. You could have told me clearer, I would have got some tonight. I was like, but they're married now, and it worked.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, he was trying to use rags to impress his date.
That's pretty cool.
That's really funny. Wow. It's a great story.
So he had that intention.
Yeah, so he wasn't there with the intention to like pray.
Right.
So like I know you learned Bansuri from G.S. Sachdevji, the late. He was a great artist. I got to see him live like so many times in L.A. Like it was really awesome. From a young age, like I remember seeing him as a kid. He passed away recently, and that was really a sad loss for like the whole Indian classical community. But how did you meet him?
So I went to college at a little college called Mills College in Oakland, which is a small women's liberal arts college. And I was introduced to him in my first year. He lived, in San Rafael.
Yeah.
In the what's called the North Bay. And I was lucky enough to have friends back home in Colorado who were close friends with a current student of his.
Oh, okay.
And so our friends in Colorado who knew I played the Bansuri reached out to her, and she set up an introduction for me to meet him, and he agreed to teach me.
That's cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I was very lucky. And then there was another interesting connection which didn't really come up at that time, but when I was very young, and I think I was even... My mom tells a story, and I believe maybe she was actually pregnant with me at the time. I think that's what it was. I was either very young or not born yet. Sachdevji came and played a concert, in the house of one of my parents' friends in Fort Collins.
Oh.
And my mom met him, and she said, I'm going to have a baby, and she's going to be musical, and I would love one day if she could study with you. And she said that to him. Like,
That's awesome.
yeah, I don't know how she had that thought, but she
I
did.
love those thoughts.
Was your mom musical?
Yeah, she's a singer.
Okay.
Yeah,
she's a Carnatic singer.
Yeah.
But somehow I think she was really moved by his music, and she just said that to him, and later it ended up
became
happening.
true.
Yeah. So from then, my parents knew of him, spoke of him, and when I started playing the bansuri, they told me about his music, and then later I moved to California, and then I was able to meet him and study with him. So
That's really
and
cool.
what you say about Indian classical music being a form of prayer too, like he was that's what he's about.
Yeah.
His music is very deep in that way, and his intentionality, and studying with him, that was what it was about. Also, it wasn't spoken about really very much. Sometimes he would give me these gems of something that he would say, but it was just very like he's very, very focused on raga and on intonation and pitch, and like very, very highly precise pitch, like just playing sa over and over and over and over and over. And I'm like, what is he hearing? I can't hear. I want to hear what he hears, because he's hearing these fine details of pitch that I didn't understand at that time.
Yeah, tuning your ears.
And he would direct my mind too. He'd be like, Sheela, your mind is wandering. Like, where is your mind? Like, you're not hearing it. I'm concerned that you're not hearing that you're out of tune right now. And
oh my goodness.
So that was what it was like. Like, he was very interested in guiding me towards like really precise intonation, and then really understanding raga and like vilambit tal.
Oh, wow.
And that was what that he played like in a vocal style. He's like Gayakiyang, so it was very in that direction of what you're talking about.
Do you do that like the Vilambit stuff? Or
I do.
You get a rare? It's too rare.
Well, I don't have the opportunity to perform it very much, but I now study with a vocal teacher, and so I understand it more deeply now. In fact, I actually wish I had some more of that background when I was studying it back then, because I didn't quite understand what we were doing. I didn't quite, and I didn't grow up listening to Hindustani music. I grew up listening to Carnatic music, which is like much more fast paced in a way.
Yeah.
We don't really have those really slow tals.
So okay, I mean, I can't picture the Carnatic influence in your music. I picture more of the North. Is that a true statement, or would you agree with that?
I think yes, because it's been the majority of my training.
Okay.
But I still listen to it and love it.
Yeah.
And I did actually study some South Indian flute also when I was young.
Okay.
In Carnatic style, but I guess in terms of like the background that I had in my musical education, I wasn't like listening to like people play Vilambit really before I started studying with them, so I didn't have a context of what that meant. Of like that really slow ektal and what we were really trying to accomplish until later when I started studying vocal and singing it, and then I started to really understand it more.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah, man, Vilambit. It's a really hard one, man. I'm not the best with Vilambits.
But I mean, I think they're like when you do it that Vilambit, that's like even so it's not like Ektal doesn't become 12, it becomes 48.
Yeah, 'cause it's so
It's
slow.
like it's super slow.
Yeah.
It's like you just have to keep concentrating. Like, where am I? Where am I? Okay, I know where I am.
Yeah.
Oh no, I have to
You
improvise.
wait,
I just
you
went
wait
out
for
of
that
tune.
second didika.
I forgot what I was doing. Oh man, I just missed it.
Yeah.
Okay, it's coming. It's gonna come soon.
And it's gotta be hard from the tabla side too. So hard to play that slowly and
Do you ever-
do you
ever forget?
Like,
Oh man, I just.
So
dropped
to
a
be
beat.
honest, like I don't know. It's been like who do I play it with, right? Like I
don't
play
play
more
with
with
me.
instrumentalists, and instrumentalists don't go to the.
We don't go that uppy.
Yeah, unless like there's very few like bansuri players. Like
Yeah.
I think I don't think Hariji did ever like Vilambit Ektal. Like that's a different style.
it-
So it's just GS style. Some violin players do it, but it's few and far in between. Like once every 5 years, somebody will ask me to play at that level of it's, I mean,
For instrumental, you're saying for
even
for
vocal. Like I don't get to
vocal.
play with classical vocalists that often.
Yeah.
it's not so many. Yeah.
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 Or I
That's a
don't
good
get the
point.
calls or whatever.
Oh well, yeah.
But I mean,
Yeah.
it's part of the training, and it's what you do, right? Like that. I think back in the day, like the tabla players, you had
to be able to do that.
you got called so often that like you're playing with this vocalist, you're playing with this instrument, this dancer, this qawwali guy, this ghazal guy. Like you just had
Yeah.
to do it all.
Right.
Now it's like a little more niche. I think.
Yeah, it was interesting when I first got to Cal Arts. Swapanji teaches there,
Right.
And he and my and Sach Devji were very close.
very very close. Yeah.
And they would play together a lot. And so when I first got to Cal Arts, he had me come into his tabla accompaniment class and play Vilambat Ektal. And there was like 4 or 5 students and him, and they were all sitting in a circle around me, all accompanying, and he was showing them like how to accompany Vilambat Ektal.
Yeah.
And like Sopanji himself
Wow.
was playing some of the time.
Wow.
That's cool.
That's so
I'm
awesome.
playing with Sopanji right now.
Yeah.
That is so
He's
awesome.
Do you remember some of the things he told them?
I
is it a while
think
ago?
I was just so nervous
Yeah.
and just counting in my head to make sure I didn't mess
Yeah.
up where the sun was. That
Yeah.
I actually don't.
Because it's all about from the tabla player's perspective, it's all about the ornamentation.
Yeah, making it
Because
beautiful.
it's so like between 1 and 2, right? You're gonna go like then 2, 3, 4, right? So it's like how you feel that 2, 3, 4, and even if it's like just like trikadin or something, or kartata titadin, or
Yeah.
din din din, or just like minor little ornaments, and then it's about reacting to what they're doing. So like sometimes you're just like going really meandy and like just off in the air. So then you want like your bayan to do more. But then sometimes like some of people do also like will do sort of sargam that does have a beat, right? Like it'll be like dun 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 dun, like it's
You can hear
staccato,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So then the tekka changes to sort of like
Match
like that or something.
Subdivide more.
Yeah. It's cool. I wish I could do it more. And then there's all these rare ones that like I grew up listening to. So like
That no one sings anymore.
like Salamat Ali Khan Saab used to come to California a lot, and he stayed at our house, and like I've seen him practice and stuff like that. And so it wasn't just Ektal. Like there was Kawaii, there was Talwara, there was Jumra, there was Tamar, there was Punjabi Tamar. Like who's gonna sing
Yeah.
that for me to play? Like,
Right.
so
To accompany.
I wish they were still alive and like you could do
Experience it and
yeah.
understand
Yeah.
it. And
in like because I think that stuff's gonna like die out. Like who sings in like Punjabi Tamar anymore? There's a difference between Tamar and Punjabi Tamar. Like the sum is on ta. It's
pretty
different.
cool.
It's pretty
That'd be
cool.
sad if that dies
I
out.
don't think I've heard.
Yeah.
A lot of these take. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't either until I started listening to
They're not in
Salamat
the-
Ali
They're
and
not on the app. Not on iTabla Pro.
Yeah,
not on that app. No,
come on, Itabla Pro, step it up.
we need to get them on there.
It's funny. The one time that Vilamit got me a gig, I was still a student at Cal Arts, and I got a call from Leona Shinneman,
Oh yeah.
wonderful tabla player.
So he's a gurbai of my dad's.
Really?
Yeah, my dad learned from Pandit Rao.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Back in the day.
That's really.
Yeah.
We need to get all those together, man. They haven't seen each other in a long time.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Like we've met them separately, but Dad hasn't met them.
And so
in a
your
while.
father was living in
He's living.
He lived here. He used to
Y'all
drive to
live there.
Newhall to go learn from
Pandit.
Dana.
Taraji, yeah. And I used to go too when I was 5. And it's like my memory's shady. Like people say that like I would sit in the lessons. I don't have memory of the tabla. I have memory of the candy that he used to give me. And like, but apparently I used to sit there and listen with my dad, and sometimes he would give me pointers too. But like I was so young that all I remember is like there was this container on the coffee table and it had this steel or it was like silver lid, and then his wife would give me candy.
And he lived in
And he
Newhall,
would
huh?
do, yeah. So it was like Corona to Newhall like once a week.
How far away is that? I have no context.
It's where Magic Mountain is.
That's very. Far.
Oh my God, that's miles away.
He lived right near where Magic Mountain.
Wow,
Yeah.
your dad trekked every
Week.
And Leona's
With me and Kulinda, because mom, like my parents were
man.
poor when we grew up, and so mom would work like the
Night shift.
night shift, and dad would work the day shift, and so dad would take us at night, and Galinda was with us too.
Oh man, he's like a terrorist.
He would have
age.
been 2.
Oh my gosh.
Is this your brother?
Yeah.
Little brother.
Wow.
So I was like 2, I was 5 and he was 2.
Wow.
So I could sit and listen. I think he was just a terrorist, the way Narup is.
Yeah, oh my god, I can't imagine
The
that.
roof doesn't sit for the
He just,
No.
oh my goodness.
for the sessions.
He's a
huh?
little whirlwind.
Oh wow.
Which he should be, you know, he's a little baby. It's fine.
Yeah.
But to go that far with a little baby
Yeah.
and to learn, that's props
and
for your
then
dad,
and
man.
then yeah, like afterwards the Pizza Hut was like back then Pizza Hut was sit down. And
it
like
tasted
it was a
good.
restaurant and it tasted good then. Like they didn't use sawdust for cheese, they
Yeah.
used cheese.
yeah.
And then, but there was Pac-Man, like they had arcade in the Pizza Hut, and so it was right next to Thanaji's house. I remember that. I remember Pac-Man.
Oh,
I
wow.
don't
You don't
remember the
remember the double
music. I remember like I can remember the smell of the house. Like there was like this tadka smell. And like, I remember him sitting up on the chair and he would teach by reciting, but I don't remember any bowls. Like it was too long ago. But yeah, I have some
cool.
sort of Cal Arts link.
Connection. They link.
Ah.
Yeah. So Leonis called me, got my number from somewhere, called me when I was still a student, like I think in my second year, and he said, "Hey, I play at this restaurant in Pasadena called Mezban, and I heard you play Bansuri. Can you play Vilambit?"
That's the first
Oh,
thing, yeah.
that's the
Can you-
request.
Yes. Can you play Vilambit?
That's so awesome.
That was like
No truth,
the
or you're
entry into the
fired.
game was like, "Do I play Vilambit?" And I said yes. You know.
Actually, I do.
And I feel really, really lucky because Leonis is such an incredible accompanist and musician, and so experienced in that, and ability to play that ektal like better than anyone I knew at the time. And so I got to like do that gig with him for years, and I would get to practice my Vilambit ektal with him.
That's
That's
awesome.
I feel very
yeah.
lucky. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it wasn't the greatest of environments, but who cares, right?
Who cares? It's you're in your own little environment.
Yeah, so that was a great. I used to love. I mean, that was great gig.
Oh man, fun.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
yeah. But I think maybe the first and maybe only time where Vilambit got me a gig.
It got you a gig. If you didn't have that, you wouldn't have got those gigs.
Right.
I wonder what would happen if you like busted it out like at some of these Kirtan gigs. Like would they just tune out?
Would they
Would
fall
they
asleep?
respond? You should try it one day.
No,
Well,
but
I would say like, we're going to practice a form of Nada yoga.
Yeah.
Now we're going to.
for context, package it right. I'm sure they're gonna.
It
be
is.
fine.
I mean, it has meditative qualities, so
It does,
like, that's the
yeah.
point.
Absolutely.
So you've also like toured with Kirsch? I read that somewhere.
Not toured. We did some gigs together. We've done.
That
So we
counts.
did.
That's a tour.
Like last year, I think it was maybe 2 summers ago. Now we were both like on the Wanderlust tour. Do you guys know what Wanderlust?
Yeah.
That's yoga,
The
right?
yoga and music festivals. So
He did that like in Korea too, right?
in Korea, who Karsh did?
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that. I don't
Oh,
know.
okay. I think I saw a post.
I was only on the North American gigs.
Okay.
So at those gigs, there was like 6 or 7 of them over the summer. So we played together at all of those
That's a tour.
festivals.
Dude, dude,
And then a couple of gigs here and there, like in California and here in LA and San Francisco and stuff.
That's cool. How was that? So like that's different, right? Or was it sort of the same?
Different in terms of.
Like his music is like the electronic.
vibe.
and-
Yeah, well, so basically, when I went to college, when I moved to Oakland, I moved from Fort Collins, Colorado, this small mountain town, northern Colorado, to Oakland. And this college that I went to, Mills College, had a very, very thriving, like, what's called like creative music scene, right? And kind of like avant-garde, you could say, contemporary, whatever you want to call it, free improvisation, that whole kind of thing. And I played in an ensemble called the Contemporary Performance Ensemble, but I played Bansuri. And so it was basically learning all about like large group free improvisation. And that's where I became introduced to all of these kind of avant-garde, like, like Cecil Taylor was like one of the first artists in residence that came. And I played Bansuri in all of these contexts.
Wow.
And so that really like just kind of expanded my mind
Yeah.
in terms of the possibility of the instrument and crossing genres and all this kind of stuff. So from that time, I was like 18, 19, I was always very interested in playing and crossing over and playing,
Yeah.
and music kind of as
kind of cliche thing to say, but as a universal language, So, yeah, and then Cal Arts obviously is a place with a lot of crazy stuff going on as well. So the gig with Karsh wasn't really outside of the realm of what I was doing. It was not super different.
That's cool.
Things that I had already doing at Cal Arts or in LA or projects. Like I've always played with people.
Yeah, I think it's this. I think musicians in general can just play. It's just about playing.
Yeah.
And I think I also
same with us. Like we've done
we'll
hip
play
hop
anywhere,
gigs.
man.
Yeah.
We've done flamenco gigs, hip hop gigs.
You get
we've
called,
done
you play.
electronica.
Yeah, it's all
It's like-
fun. It's all the same.
Yeah.
And you know how to adjust and make it work.
Exactly. I've always been that way too. And also even from when I was young, I was always interested in this, like crossing over and like hybridizing, like even from a very young age when I was like studying jazz piano and Western music and Hindustani music. And like, I was always interested in those connections. And,
that's cool.
So what's been your favorite crossover project?
oh, wow. That's a really good question. Wow. Well, I will say that, in recent memory, a project that I have enjoyed a lot is a project called Burnt Hibiscus. And
Smelly.
yeah. And Burnt Hibiscus is basically music written for a large chamber jazz ensemble and myself. So it's composed by this incredible musician called John Armstrong, who I met at Cal Arts. We went to Cal Arts together, and John used to come to Sargam classes with Ashish Khan Sahib. And we used to be together in the classes. And so he learned a lot about the thoughts and how to read sargam and how to read the different notation and the tals and that kind of thing. And he was very interested in it. And he and I were friends, and we would play together and stuff. And he wanted to write a suite of music for a large chamber ensemble and my voice, harp, bansuri, and harmonium that featured me. And so he basically took inspiration from several different thoughts and wrote melodies and arranged them and set them to poetry that was written by his wife, Erin Armstrong. Surrealist poetry about the landscape of LA.
This sounds really cool.
Yeah. And so, so we recorded that music, performed it at Angel City Jazz Festival a couple years ago, and it's also on a record on this record label called Orinda Records, which was started by another Cal Arts alum. And the record's out. You can check it out.
Is it on all the Apple iTunes stuff?
I think so.
We'll have to put a link.
Yeah, I'll put a link in the description.
I think so. That was a really, really, really fun project, and just to have that opportunity to just sing it and play it, and it was just really fun. I loved
awesome.
it.
Yeah, it sounds really cool.
Really cool. And all the players were amazing, all people that we've gone to school with, and really, really amazing, intuitive.
Yeah, we'll have to check it out.
Who's it?
Players.
However, I'd love to see how he took the rags and used them in his own context.
Right.
That'd be really interesting to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, because sometimes we'll see a rag in a way, and then we're like focusing on like, oh, this ga is like 3 microtones down or something.
Right.
And they're like, oh, well, we just made this harmony thing, and you're like,
Yeah.
whoa, I didn't even see that could be done. Right?
How does that harmony work if that guy is 3 centimeters?
But it's
doesn't
cool.
matter.
It
works.
I mean, come on, you've been incorporating that into your playing too, like more harmony
Yeah, I've been trying because the instrument it
for a
has-
certain section of
it has
otherwise
the
the classical
possibility
purists
of,
will get all pissed off.
of chords.
It has
The
possibility,
minimal chords that I can understand. And then, within the context of, I want to bring it into the context of Indian classical music because it just beautifies what we are doing more. And it's just how to bring it in subtly and not just shove it in your face. Chords, bang, 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 bang. It's just subtly doing it and trying to embellish the rhythmic pattern or the phrase that you're trying to do.
Yeah.
So that's how I'm trying to approach it, but that sounds really interesting.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the age-old question with this kind of fusion. I hate calling it fusion, but hybrid, whatever you want, crossover, what you call it, is like how to incorporate raga and harmony, right? I think that's kind of like the...
I think the what is traditionally called like the light, in quotes, light
That
guys.
is super chordy.
Those guys have
They've
since the
mastered
60s
it.
and 70s, like if you listen to like Madan Mohan, like Bollywood tracks or whatever,
Yeah.
they were like mastered. Like there's these massive orchestras that are playing.
Of course, yeah.
Harmonized
You know
rag.
that this is like rag, whatever, like Madhava or something,
Absolutely, yeah.
and it could be like a rag like Madhava. It's not even
Yeah,
like a
it's not
Kordi
even like-
Bageshi or something.
Yeah, it's a heavy,
like,
heavy
It's a heavy
Madhava.
rag, and they're finding like
beautiful
beautiful
chord
chords
phrases.
and like harmonies and the way the orchestra is arranged.
I don't know how to do it.
And then
man.
you know, just like it's people like Mehdi Hasan Khan Sahab that
Yeah.
like in his ghazals, like they're all rag based, but then he'll find a different way of saying it, and you're like, that doesn't break any rules of the rag, but it's brand new.
Yeah, and it doesn't. Yeah, how did you come up with that?
Yeah.
That's what. Yeah, that's what.
And
we're trying
so
to
then we're
incorporate.
seeing a trend. Well, at least this is my
I
observation.
think there is a trend with the
that
younger.
the younger generation is now going
trying to
towards
incorporate that.
incorporate harmony.
Yeah, for
like people
sure,
like
for
Rahul Ji, Niladri, like
yeah,
You hear it
Rakesh
more
Ji.
and more, yeah.
Rakesh, yeah, like they're all throwing it in more so than their teachers did.
Yeah,
Which I think is awesome.
And they're not breaking any rules, purists. It's just presented differently.
Yeah. So that word fusion always comes up, and like depending on who you're talking to, like because we deal with classical snobs sometimes, and
Snobs.
yeah, exactly, and they don't get that like music is
It's a fusion anyway.
It's always evolving.
always evolving.
The body that you're used to
Yeah.
Was
is not
not.
the body from
Exactly.
50 years before you heard it.
Exactly.
Like that's because something fused into it, and like
Exactly. Yeah.
they don't get it.
Yeah.
They're just
Yeah.
like, that's not what I heard.
Yeah.
But it's cool.
Yeah, they'll come around.
Yeah.
Or they'll just not listen.
We
to
just
us.
got to keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at it is like looking for the commonalities, looking for the things that, you know, that bring us together.
Yeah.
And for me personally, I don't think about it as fusion because I don't think about it as like I'm bringing two things together.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah, it's
many
the same.
things.
Does it
Yeah.
sound good?
Does it sound good? And
that's
also
it.
like I feel like, well, I'm also many things, you know.
Yeah.
I'm Indian and I'm American and that's
Yeah.
all whatever.
Absolutely,
I mean,
yeah.
it's like the age old sort of like
Yeah.
search for identity
Who
and
am
cliche,
I?
but it's true. Like it's for me anyway, it's been really important is like using music as a way to kind of also like explore myself and my identity and where I belong and all that kind of stuff. So it's like just a natural thing for me. It was like, okay, I grew up with all these influences and like just make music from that. It's
Yeah.
not like
Yeah.
I'm
That
trying
is
to like
Same.
take this from over here and take this from over, put East and West together,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
It's
That's not.
sellotape it
That's
together.
never how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same with us. Like when you said it like in front of Logic or something. You don't sit there going, today I'm gonna make a hip hop track or a dance track. It just
just
you
whatever
just start
comes.
going like you
Yeah.
just start typing, you start
Yeah.
playing, recording, and then
Something happens.
it's the same process. Like I don't think anybody goes in going like I'm gonna mix this and this and this.
Yeah.
You just go there to create,
Or
and
if
then
they
whatever
do, you
comes
can
out.
absolutely tell that it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Because everything grows organically, and that's how it comes together.
Yeah, and I don't even say like necessarily like, oh, you know, like with John with the Burnt Hibiscus project, like he was influenced by something, but he's not saying I'm using this raga
Yeah.
and I'm using it with this. He's just using the influence of something and a set of pitches and using it as new creative material to create something original. So
Yeah.
I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, we'll definitely check that out.
Where is your friend now?
John actually now is the director of jazz studies at Pocatello University in Idaho.
Wow.
Pocatello, Idaho.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Done well?
Yeah. Doing some awesome stuff, yeah.
There's another musician that I've seen that you work with a lot. His name is Clint.
Clinton. Yes.
Clinton.
Yes.
Yeah, so tell us about him because I think it's been like for years I see your names together.
Yeah.
So it's like a collaborative.
Yeah, so Clinton and I also met at CalArts. And he plays trumpet and he plays guitar and writes songs and he's a producer. And I just super admired his musicianship and his specifically the first thing I learned about him was his trumpet playing and his phrasing, and you know, so we started working together, and he hasn't studied Indian music formally. He just kind of through me, you know, he never went to sargam classes or learned about dal or anything, but through me he has been introduced to it. but I always told him, I was like, I just love the way you sound, just as you are. Like, I don't think you need to like learn raga. You don't need to learn bala. Like, his ear is so incredible that he can just get in and just go
Do
with
stuff.
something and make it beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, and so we've worked together in many different ways and capacities. We had a band earlier called Prema Soul. When we first worked together, this is a long time ago, but now we just do different stuff. Right now he's in the last few years he's been focusing a lot on songwriting, and he plays guitar in this really awesome tuning, and he's just an incredible musician. So yeah, we do all kinds of stuff together.
Cool.
He produced
awesome.
both my albums as well. He's a great producer and mixing engineer. So.
Any other albums on the horizon?
No, not at the moment. Been tracking for other people, but yeah, I've got stuff in the works, but it's no planned releases at the moment.
Yeah.
So
Always in the works.
you moved back to Colorado, right?
I
from
did,
LA?
yeah.
So how's
yeah.
that? Do you miss this?
Yeah, I do. I mean, it's yeah, it's. I think it's both.
Yeah.
I miss it a lot, and I also love being in Colorado. Like, it's really nice to be near the mountains. I've loved them as a kid and growing up there, and it's great to be near family.
Yeah.
Your family's there, and it's great to like get in the car and not be thinking about traffic.
That must be amazing.
And
That's nice.
not be thinking about like where's the next place I'm going to live that I can afford, that I can practice and I can play, and like all of these things that for so many years in LA I struggled with.
Yeah.
So all those things are nice. On the flip side, yes, I miss all my friends. I miss the scene. I miss the gigs. I miss the creativity. So I come back as much as I can, at least a couple times a year, and play gigs and work on projects with people.
That's cool.
You teach out there, right?
I do. Yeah, I started. It's interesting. We started our conversation talking about Kirtan. So there is a Buddhist university in Boulder called Naropa University.
Oh.
And at Naropa University, they actually have a major in yoga. You can major in yoga studies as an undergraduate. And the head of that program is a lover of raga music and Indian music and kirtan and all that kind of stuff. And so for a long time, they had my first Bansuri teacher was teaching there, and he taught like beginning level Indian singing. With the focus on devotional music, because that's what
Right.
kind of was being asked, was popular and people were interested in that. So he retired recently, and so they invited me to take over his classes.
That's
Nice.
awesome.
So we do. So what we teach there is kind of like a vision, quote unquote, of kirtan and raga. So the students learn, Sanskrit pronunciation. They learn about the deities. They learn about bhakti in Hinduism, and they also learn about raga and very basic, just like Bhupali and simple sargams. And
Man, I wish Bhopali was simple.
not simple. You know what I mean? Like, it's not simple. That's not the way to put it.
But yeah, the entry level stuff. Which can
yeah.
also
A little
blossom
bit more
into super advanced stuff.
Totally. Oh yeah, of course. So that's what we teach there, and the students also learn how to lead kirtan. I teach them how to do it more in the traditional way, like we all face the altar, and they learn about the ritual aspect of it and its roots, and so they get some experience with that.
Wow. And that's every day?
At Naropa? No, this is a weekly class.
Oh, okay.
This semester, we're gonna have 2 sections of it, and then we're gonna introduce a second level and a third level. So
That's
I'm lucky.
good. So you're gonna growing the program.
Yeah, I'm lucky that the
And you get to make it, I suppose.
Well, yeah,
Right.
and I mean, this particular class existed already for 10 years. That was taught
okay.
with my previous teacher. So he really built it up, but now they really want to expand it more. And again, partly because kirtan is becoming so popular,
Yeah.
that these students who are majoring in yoga want to learn how to lead kirtan, chant mantra with proper pronunciation. They want to learn how to guide their students in these practices.
Translations, I suppose, as well.
Exactly.
Understand what they're teaching.
So they can get a little bit deeper into the roots of it in this course.
That's great.
Yeah,
Not
that's
just
really good.
entertainment, then. That's wonderful.
And these are undergrads, like.
They're mostly undergrads, some grads.
Okay. Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Yeah. I didn't know you could do that at university.
This is a very special university. Like
Yeah.
they have a day in the semester called Practice Day, where all students are encouraged to engage in spiritual practice, and specifically, like they focus on meditation because they're Buddhist university. So there's Shambhala meditation, mindfulness meditation. There's like meditation rooms around campus. You can just drop in and just like go into a meditation room and just sit whenever you want. Like I said, there's a
sounds so
whole day
nice.
dedicated to like
It's
meditation.
an amazing environment.
They need those everywhere, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you imagine
It's
if people
really
could actually
awesome.
calm themselves down?
No, it's so cool. Like in our classroom, the closet is stocked with zafus and zaputans, like the traditional Buddhist meditation cushions. We all sit on the ground, in a circle, and we do a Buddhist bow at the beginning and end of every class, and we learn about contemplative education and mindfulness and all this
Yeah.
kind of stuff in the classroom. It's very cool place to be. I'm very grateful.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that must be really good. Like, yeah, like really good for you. Like, because I mean, we go back
Sangat,
to
yeah.
like the Indian, the sangat, meaning like
Yeah,
who
the
you're
reason,
around.
Yeah, the reason
like
for Kirtan
influences
is to
you.
get a good sangat around
Yeah.
you.
Exactly.
No, but then
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
like if we were in an environment like that, like
We'd become better people.
we'd become better people and better musicians.
Yeah, that's true.
Like if
Because
you're,
everything's positive around you.
yeah,
So kind of seep in there.
yeah, you're really lucky, man. Take advantage of that.
I know, and I do, and I also so another connection is that my mom actually also taught there for 20 years,
Oh wow.
and her one of her students was the man who's now the head of the department.
So what did
So
she
she
teach?
taught. She didn't teach music. But she taught Hinduism. So
Okay.
she basically for people who were religious studies majors, they could take all these classes about Buddhism, but she taught the Hindu component. So she taught the Bhagavad Gita and the scriptures, and she taught Sanskrit, and she taught all this kind of stuff, yoga philosophy and history and stuff.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So
Like you're going home then? It's your home, basically.
Kind of, yeah. And so the semester she retired, then also my previous music teacher retired, and so then they hired me to take his place. And so
So do you have all that like the knowledge that your mom had? Like,
no, so
no, I mean, because that's an amazing background.
Yeah.
Like,
it's an amazing.
It's a lifelong
So
learning.
I was always very interested in the musical side.
yeah.
So I have absorbed some of the philosophy. I can talk about the deities and this and that, but I don't have that
yeah, it's
whole background. She was very into philosophy and scripture, and she studied Sanskrit and stuff like that. But for me, it was always like, what melody it was singing. Like, I love the sound of that mantra and what the
Yeah.
notes are in the sargam. And yeah, I learned how to sing it and chant it. But for me, I'm always like, what
that
is-
still has an effect. So same with me. Like my grandfather was an amazing Kirtan practitioner, and like his knowledge of Gurbani and what it meant and like how to
nice,
connect
vast.
was vast. But again, and he passed. But again, like I was about like, oh, that's a cool rag. Like
Yeah.
and sometimes I wish I did, ask more
Yeah.
and know more. And like, and I have knowledge, but like you're around them when they talked, and at that time you may not have been 100% into it, but it got in there. It goes in.
Yeah.
But I just wish like I focused more on that when he was around.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, I'm always calling my mom and saying, what's the deeper meaning of this word or the root of this, or what is the philosophy
Yeah.
behind this? And so she's an incredible resource for me, and I hope to learn keep learning as much as
It's
I
a
can.
lifelong learning, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's too much to learn.
It's too much to do.
Yeah.
I can barely do music.
It's like either you pick which one that you want to just go all in on.
Right.
But somehow, like they were able to do both, and then they're
Blessed
both
people.
tied to each other, and
Yeah.
they're both linked. But yeah, it's something that like I still want to learn more about. Well, I really want to thank you for being here today. I think the people will enjoy listening to you speak about all this stuff, and we'll have some links to your work below. But so why don't you tell people where they can find you, websites, social media, anything?
Yeah, so can find me at shebrings.com, SHEBRINGS, and on Facebook, it's just Facebook / my name, Sheela Bringi, and Instagram handle is shebrings, and YouTube is my name, Sheela Bringi.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It's all easy.
It's all easy.
Yep.
Yeah, there's some stuff coming up for those of you that do love traditional bhajan and kirtan and Indian classical dance. There's a festival I'm performing at in the Bay Area called Prasada Festival. It's happening the last weekend of July this month in Occidental, which is about 90 minutes north of San Francisco. And then in Bulgaria, I'm going to be performing at a yoga and music retreat. And we're actually, Miles Shrewsbury will be there, Neelamjit.
Yeah, Neelamjit will be there.
Will be there. Steve Gorn, incredible Bansuri
Yeah.
flautist, will be there. And we're going to have, I'm actually I'm part of the music team that puts together the programming.
Oh,
so
nice.
Cool.
we're going to have some Indian classical music as well, and
Awesome.
some kirtan, and Clinton Patterson will be there with his band rocking out.
Cool.
And there's some other things going on. I'll be playing in Berkeley as well, and later in this month, and of course in Boulder, in Colorado, all over Colorado as well.
Nice.
Keep him busy. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it's always good to be busy. Well, thank you again for
Thank
being
you
here.
very
My
much.
pleasure. Thanks
Check
for
us
having
out
me.
at absolutefocus.co and patreon.com/absolutefocus. All right.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to hit the subscribe button.